And we're live, streaming live on the YouTube today. Last week I streamed to X platform, and unfortunately, I didn't record it. So it never got posted up to YouTube. Sorry. And I had every intention of going ahead and doing that on Monday and just never got to it. Just other stuff going on. Anyway, yeehaw. How's everybody doing? Oh my God. Can you believe we're like 2 weeks away from the eclipse? This first one, lunar eclipse, happening in Virgo. And I can feel it already. The retrograde of Mercury, which will be retrograding alongside of Venus, is almost upon us. Venus is already retrograde. She's already going back over the past, back over a lot of things that have been going on. I think she's kind of scrutinizing Mars's actions, as Mars has been retrograde for so long, since October in Cancer, and really not acting right a lot of times, and maybe, well, not maybe, but definitely not acting the way Mars should act, which is moving forward and being, you know, daring and brave and masculine energy, right? And well, Mars couldn't help it. I mean, let's have a moment of silence for Mars. Mars is now moving forward. It's no longer retrograde. However, it's in Cancer, not a sign that it likes particularly, and it is out of bounds. Again, has to do with height in the sky. When a planet is very low to the horizon, that's south, very far south declination. We call it declination, declining. And Mars out of bounds has been crazy. When planets are out of bounds, it's the planet is either very far below or very far above the average height or or what do you call when something is low? Height or depth, I don't know, of a planet, the average. It's above or below average, let's just say. And the planet itself does not function the way you would normally expect it to. And so we've seen very passive aggressive, very feet dragging, spiteful kind of a Mars. Yeah, a lot of contention, a lot of friction, a lot of repressed anger coming out in ways that are just, yeah, unacceptable, inappropriate, and weird, just downright weird. So, yeah, it's getting a little bit better now that Mars is moving forward, but Mars won't get out of its shadow until April. And, or if I'm wrong about that, it won't really start acting normal until into April. I want to see when the declination is back to somewhat normal. After first week in April, Mars will be not out of bounds. It will be within bounds. So think about it, in terms of sports, what is the ball when it's out of bounds, right? It doesn't count. So Mars will be back into bounds first week in April, after the first week in April, and then it will about the round about the third week in April will enter into Leo after the second week of April. So as far as the drive, ambition, masculine energy, um, whatever else, Mars, police, military, Aries people, people ruled by Mars, Aries first, but Scorpio people too. Why is that important? Why do I bring it up? Because this retrograde of Mercury and Venus, which has just started, um, is in the sign of Aries. It will move into Pisces. Both of them will move into Pisces where they've already been. And but right now they're in Mercury and Venus are both in Aries, the sign that Mars rules. So so we are with the retrogrades rethinking, revising, taking a look at our past relationships, being that it's Venus in retrograde, and thinking about it, going in inward. Retrograde tends to have us going backward and inward. So it is internal, but things will come up from the past. If this is specifically affecting your chart, if you have planets there, if you're in Aries, if you have planets aspecting Aries, those degrees, both, well, Venus went retrograde at 10 degrees of Aries, and Mercury will go retrograde at 9 degrees of Aries. So, about that degree of any cardinal sign, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, those are squares to Aries or conjunct if your planets are in Aries. So, or close to those degrees, it will impact you more personally, let's say. So, so what are we reviewing? What are we rethinking? What are we remembering, right? In terms of Aries energy, I think first and foremost, it's about us, our own Aries energy, wherever that lies in our chart, our independence, our agency, our ability to express ourselves as an individual. Um, it really is about our identity and who we are and how we came into this world, Aries being the first sign. And Mars is a is, the planet that rules Aries. So Mars, wherever Mars is in our chart, it's our ability to do these things to move forward or how we do that. How do we assert ourselves? And it's also dealing with aggression and confrontation. On the opposite side of Aries is Libra. Libra is supposed to be all about diplomacy and kind of social graces, whereas Aries just charges ahead, only thinks about what it wants, doesn't think about the other in Libra, how things affect the other person. So there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. And because in April we have Neptune entering Aries, that's a huge beginning of a huge new cycle. I was just looking back on the things that were happening when the last time that Neptune was in Aries, because it's been a really long time. I don't know, is it 200 years, 150 years, something like that? I don't know. It was around sometime in the 1860s, which when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, right." There was a lot going on in the 1860s regarding religion and politics. There was a lot happening for the United States, but obviously the whole world in terms of our religions, our philosophies, our laws. So that would be worth a look to see what was going on. And that popped up for me because I'm very interested in in religions, first of all, and what was going on at that time. Um, I came across some stuff and was looking at um, Mormonism and the history of the Mormon church. So, and then I realized, oh, right, that's very interesting what was going on at the time. I think that was about the time that Joseph Smith died, and then someone else took over, forget his name, but I was the podcast I was listening to had to do with polygamy and where did this come from and what was the history as far as the LDS church looks at it of their origins. And 1860-ish seemed to be a pivotal point. So I think it is very interesting that we are entering into Neptune in Aries. And as we're doing it, we're having a Mercury retrograde and a Venus retrograde, and all these planets clustered at the last degrees of Pisces. And the Pope is sick. And Scientology, it looks like there's going to be a grand jury investigation going on. You see where I'm going with this? We're cleaning up. We're in the like stages of cleaning up one age and going into another. So a lot of things are coming up around religion. Also, you know, politics and the media and people's political philosophies, life philosophies, all this stuff is coming up. So this is a great time to start our podcast on this day because I'm going to share the chart. Today is March 2nd. March is a 3-month in numerology, so the second is a 5. Fives usually give us a little bit of chaos to throw us off our rocker. Wow, Pisces season has been nutso, and it just seems like last week. I know it couldn't have been, but it just seems like not too long ago we had Mercury entering Pisces. And that's when it was like so hard I found it hard to understand what people were trying to say. I'm like, is it me or are people just not being clear? Or are they seeing this image in their head and it's just not coming out their mouth the way they think it is or the way they want it to. So now Mercury is at the very last degrees of Pisces with Neptune. Total lack of clarity. Like people are delusional. everyone sees this reality differently. And there's a total lack of clarity here. With Mercury and Neptune, it's like everybody's got their own reality. It's pretty crazy. It's like Mercury is the rational mind. Mercury is Hermes, who is supposed to be the messenger and the courier of information from the gods or the divine realm or spirit or, the soul or higher self. And it's filtering through Neptune. And Neptune is the veil, right? Pisces as a whole sign is the veil. And, Pisces represents the collective unconscious, the subconscious, the 12th house. We're really wading through some murky waters here. It's nuts. So I don't know if you like Pisces energy, if you have Pisces prominent in your chart, maybe you just love it, you know? Um, nothing is real, nothing has to be real, nothing is concrete. Fantasies can become reality. For sure. I absolutely believe that. And with Saturn going through Pisces, well, it is helping us or encouraging us to discern what is real, what is not, where are the boundaries, where is the sense of authority. But it's definitely putting us through some tests and giving us limitations and boundaries. We don't have them. We don't have the clarity. Saturn's job in Pisces is, to try to do that, to try to make some sense and reality and keep sanity within the loony bin. So, I mean, uh, Mar Mercury will go into Aries this week, and that'll be a good thing, I think. So, does Mercury plunge to the depths of the collective ocean and emerge into Aries and demand action? That could be. It seems like we're sorting out a lot of things at these last degrees, trying to wrap our heads around it. The North Node is there, which means it's fated. It's what we need to do. We need to sift through this portion. Although I think it'll be really interesting to see what Mercury comes up with when he pops back out and surfaces in Aries. Oh my gosh. Well, if I'm looking at what other things are going on, we've got asteroid Ophelia at 26 degrees of Pisces, headed for the same spot, the North Node and Neptune. And Ophelia is a reference from Hamlet, right? And she drowned herself. So this has everything to do with just people who are just going off the deep end, taking drastic measures. I hate to think that it could be literal, but I don't know, look for drownings, but metaphorical, drowning in emotion. It does reference um, female histrionics, which can be exhibited by males too. And, it's not just a female thing, but it does have this feeling of drowning and sorrow and hopelessness I think we are kind of seeing a lot of that. It's like, will this ever end? Will we ever get through this? Will we ever know the truth? Will we ever be able to move forward? Hi. Now, another thing compounding this is asteroid Psyche is also at 28 degrees. So we are dealing with some mental health issues. It is what we are meant to deal with right now. It's what is coming up because we need to see it, we need to heal it, we need to see where the fractured psyche is at. And asteroid psyche has to do with soul retrieval, also truth seeking. So, soul retrieval, I won't get too deep into what this is, but if this strikes a chord with you and you've got prominent things in your chart around the last degrees of Pisces, soul retrieval, you can look at it in many different ways, but I mean, there is actual therapy that you can do this. You could people do it through hypnosis, people meditate on it. I it's definitely associated with looking at past lives, but what we have to understand is this kind of thing happens on conscious as well as unconscious levels. So it's just what we're doing right now. And it's like it's like the concept of calling back calling our pieces back to us in the same way that the myth of Osiris is, being split apart and scattered and then retrieving the pieces. So on a soul level where people have been fragmented, whether it's in this lifetime, another lifetime, it is about retrieving those pieces and healing them and integrating them. So that's a lot right now. And I don't know where Psyche will be going forward or how fast it moves with Ophelia, but they will eventually meet up with Mercury and Venus. So there's a lot going on with our relationships and putting pieces back together. You know, I look at it also as, we have a relationship with anybody, family, romantic, friends, whatever it is. And where there is pain and karma or issues, we can get stuck there. And so you can look at that as a fragment of your soul is still attached to that. So I personally, and it's not something that I've really delved into, but you could look at it as, going back through the past and reconciling those relationships that have affected us. We can kind of go back and take that part of us back. I think it just takes consciously looking at it and working through it and acknowledging, the pain, what was done wrong, whether it was to us or by us, and acknowledging that part of us so that we can be conscious and integrate it and heal it. So there's a lot of that going on. Again, whether we know it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not, it's there for us. The more conscious we are about it, and we make a point to sit there and say, wow, how did I lose myself? How did I give up my power? my agency? How did I assign my identity to be defined by someone else? I think that's a good thing to look at with this retrograde and eclipse season because it is almost here. I mean, it is here. We're in it. It's sort of the window. But let me go through the days this week and the aspects so that we can anticipate what's coming. Today, we have the moon in Aries, conjunct Chiron. Again, a great aspect for healing, mentorship, coming back to who we are. The moon is waxing, so it's growing, right? We had the new moon in Pisces, square to Jupiter. The moon is moving towards Jupiter. So we're learning. Jupiter's all about, learning and expanding our knowledge and looking at our faith, our beliefs, our philosophies, our religions, it's higher learning, it's other cultures, other belief systems, and we have to kind of look at that and how are we integrating this? How are we working on it? And in the sign of Gemini, there's a lot going on as far as a lot of information hitting us all at once. And we got to sort it through our filters. But the first filter it goes through is Pisces, which is a mess. And you're looking at everybody and thinking, God, where's the sanity at? And then in Aries, we come back to ourself. What do we want? How are we moving forward personally? How do we confront? How do we assert? And Chiron is healing and finding examples and mentors and, identifying within the crowd. What does that sort of archetype look like? And how could we heal that? And how can we model it and move forward? And I think a lot has to do with how we handle the emotions because Mars is square to Chiron, not exact, but it has been for a while now. And that is, how do we handle our frustration and our anger? And how do we move forward when we're not allowed or we're not in a position to move forward directly the way Mars would like to? It has to move sideways like the crab in Cancer. So, you know, it's a test of maturity and how can we do better? And who do we look to for guidance and an example of that? That's a good thing to think about today with the moon in Aries conjunct Chiron and squared to Mars. So let's see, the sun is in Pisces, it's conjunct asteroid Coronis. Again, like I said, square to Jupiter. Squares to Jupiter are not necessarily bad. Squares just promote or provide friction and spur us on to action, challenge us, right? Now, the sun is moving towards, it's at 12, but it's moving towards 15, where there's a star, Ashenar, which is associated with public office, religion, philosophy, and it's high office, it's prominence. And when this star is in conjunction with Jupiter, it's pretty favorable. But here we're getting a square. Jupiter's at 12, it's not quite at 15, but the square is growing. And I think within a few days, when the sun is at 15, I wonder if we'll see something around religion or leaders, like the Pope. Has anyone checked on him lately? Uh, yeah, so that is today. Also, I want to point out two stars at the end here at the end of Pisces at 28 degrees where Mercury is with Psyche and all that jazz. One star is called Azel. I never know how to pronounce Azelphphage. 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 In Cygnus, which is the tail of the swan. This relates to birds, performing birds, doves, carrier pigeons, talking birds, information collecting. It made me think of talking heads and the media and the little birdies. And what I've been seeing, I saw a few instances of this where it seems like very specifically a rumor was spread through the media, when they come out and they say, "My sources say," "Oh, I have sources." There's no proof of that. That's usually one side leaking something to the media to spin it, and it may not be true. In this case, it wasn't true. So, it made me think of the whole Epstein document drop and these social media influencers with their binders doing the can. It's just so ridiculous. And that's what this made me think of, Cygnus, the swan. And I think most of Cygnus is in Pisces. So that was an interesting thing to note. The other star that's here at 28 degrees of Pisces is a star called Shiat. Shiat. So it kind of is what it sounds like. This one is in Pegasus, and it is associated with ambition, vanity, intuition, enthusiasm, capriciousness, bad judgment, also associated with ships, oceans, changes in the weather, vanity, ambition, poor discernment mostly. And what did we say? What are we seeing? It's what we need to look at for sure. Mercury is here, Neptune is here. What is being covered up? What is being obfuscated? What illusion is being created? We really need to look at that carefully. But I tell you, we're going to get round two of this because both Mercury and Venus are going to retrograde and go back to this same degree. So at that time, Saturn will be coming up to the North Node and going through the same degrees. And it won't really be until that time when, if there's any phase two of anything, phase two of, like season two of this particular reality TV show, um, that's when you're maybe going to see something of substance because only Saturn can bring that substance. So I'm looking forward to April. I'm going to peg that to be around the first week of April when shit really gets real. Or like you're going to get more clarity. That's Saturn. Neptune is just covering it up right now, and Mercury is right there in with it. So, anyway, that's today. That's where we're at. And so, let's see. Tomorrow is a 6th day with the numerology. That's Monday. Mercury will move into Aries. And let's see what happens. It's some new phase of whatever's going on, boots on the ground, kind of moving forward pretty slowly with Mars in Cancer. whatever Mars in Cancer has been doing since October for you personally, whether it's, your own sorting through your own emotions or going through family stuff, wherever this is in your chart, I mean, it has not been easy, but we're starting to move forward. Mars had to move backward, go to the past, and bring up some crap so that, sometimes we have to get wounded again in order to heal it, right? So, all of that stuff, it's starting to move forward. It's still squaring Chiron, but at least it moves forward, right? And Mercury in Aries is going to have us thinking more about that and more about ourselves and how we want to move forward. And Mars is moving towards Venus. So Mars wants to have a conversation about something. So let's see what that looks like. Because Mars is going to meet with Venus before it retrogrades, I think. Hang on, I might be wrong. Or as it retrogrades. March 11th. So it's not within the scope of our weekly thing, but I'm sorry, Mercury. And Mercury is pretty, well, it could be pretty thoughtless, but definitely, it's just going to speak its mind with no filter. Sorry. I think that people's filter and mask are coming off, especially with Mars now direct. Tomorrow it'll be even more obvious in our speech, in the way we think. I mean, we're just ready to move on and get it over with, right? But there's still a lot that has to happen. But it is wanting to have a conversation about relationships and who's associated with who and who has the value, who is going to be the first, who's going to be the first, and people wanting to be the first person to announce something. It's going to maybe fall on its face and be premature. So look at a lot of stuff that's happening. Like, I don't know. Let me think of a work example where, like the boss says, we're going to do things differently and this is how we're going to do it, but it's not well planned. And then you come up against resistance because it's just not that well thought out, or because it was hasty and impromptu. Now we got to redo things when Mercury goes retrograde. So there is this thing about having to maybe eat your words, maybe have to go back and renegotiate and confront something when it has to do with money, some kind of new beginning, relationships, females. Maybe females are a little too feisty. That's Venus in Aries. I don't know. And I think there's also something about new regulations, new laws, new policies. And I guess with Venus here, it has to kind of go back and see, well, all right, how does that apply now? How do we have to apply this to our current state of affairs? I also expect there to be some new lawsuits being filed. You know how I love lawsuits. It could be, there could be lawsuits, investigations, grand jury type stuff, probably. And I think it will be perhaps religious or institutions of higher learning. That is possible. And, travel is an issue. Travel's an issue when we have any kind of a Mercury retrograde, but lately it has been crazy. So Monday, the moon is in Taurus for most of the day. So that's a little bit of calm, even though Mercury seems to be stirring shit up in Aries. It's just being impulsive, but it's also being brave and taking the initiative, even if we're going to have to go back and redo some stuff. But overall, not too bad in terms of production, getting things done. Moon in Taurus is pretty stable. It doesn't really like to rock the boat or make waves or change things. But it is making a square to Pluto. I will note that. Pluto and Pallas Athena, the asteroid of strategy and patterns. Looking at patterns, looking at the emotional stability that we crave and what interrupts that, and how do we try to control our environment, and how is the networks around us being controlled. And also, Pluto is transforming certain things. Here we can look at technology, we can look at digital currency, all that type of stuff. But on a personal level, we should look at our control issues. And you wouldn't think that Taurus would be controlling, but it definitely can be. It likes things status quo, it doesn't like changes. So it can be quite explosive in terms of digging its heels in when it doesn't want to change. And interesting, if we look at the ruler of Taurus, that's Venus. And Venus goes retrograde today. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. And Venus is the ruler. So I see Venus kind of going back and sabotaging some stuff here. And we have heard reports of evidence being destroyed. This is evidence being destroyed. Venus is going to go back and try to hide things. We're going to hear more about that as Mercury gets closer to Venus, because then Mercury is going to have to go back and try to see what's left to connect the dots. So, in terms of personal stuff, it's just going back and retrieving probably memories, early memories, because Aries is early stages of development of the identity. So, let's see. Monday, Mercury goes into Aries. The moon is in Taurus, it squares Pluto and Pallas Athena. There's definitely a strategy here for control, but how can we strategize our own transformation, death and rebirth with Pluto? How can we look at our patterns with Pallas Athena and look for a strategy to help us to manage? And what else do we have going on here? The moon is conjunct. Oh, that was yesterday. I mean, today. Duh. No, I won't bring that up because I already blew past that. Never mind. All right, so moving on to Tuesday, 4th. Oh, I just realized I wasn't sharing my screen. Let me do that. Sorry. This Mercury in Pisces has just got me. Gah. got me. It's got me all confuzzled. Confuzzled. All right. Mm, Sorry. Yeah, here we go. Zoom, workplace, and Zoom, and Zoom. Sorry, hang on. Forgot to share my screen. Terrible, terrible. All right, there we go. This is March 3rd, and that's Monday. Okay, good. All right, moving on to Tuesday. We have still the moon in Taurus, sextiling to the sun in Pisces and Mars. So that's really good energy. So on an on the individual level, the identity, the leadership role, that's the sun. The moon is our emotional state, our collective emotional state and focus of the public, let's say. Also sextile to Mars and Cancer, moving forward, taking action. So it feels like things are pretty harmonious and on the same page, ready to move forward. Mercury is sextiling Pluto, it's starting to from Aries. So it feels like we're getting some information, we're getting clarity, we're speaking our mind, talking about with Mercury who we are, how we want to move forward, how we want to present things, how things are being presented to us. And that is through Mars moving forward slowly, not forward, but sort of sideways still, but still moving forward. And, Mars is motivation. And what is the motivation? It is to conserve and protect and defend. In Cancer, very defensive. So, um, it's not really on the offensive, it's sort of on the defensive, but it's heading things off at the pass. It's let's try to avoid what we have been going through since October, since the retrograde Mars. How can we re-envision the future? We can think about it that way. And in terms of masculine and feminine, but masculine in terms of how do we express our emotions? How can we contain the emotional quotient and not let it get the best of us? How can we act in our best interests or in the best interests of the family or the company or the country, but not be emotionally driven? Mars is still emotionally driven and it will be that way until April, I think. When Mars goes into Leo, it'll be more Mars like. But Tuesday looks pretty stable. It's preparing for changes. The moon is sextile to Saturn. I mean, that's definitely using some rationality and practicality, but it also is Saturn is the authority. So getting a clear picture and a decision from Saturn, or knowing that Saturn is on board, knowing, what are the limitations? What are the regulations? What are the steps moving forward? And the sun is moving towards Saturn. It's where we're going towards. So when the sun conjuncts Saturn, we are going to get a clear, very clear uh, limitation, delineation, responsibility, accountability. We're moving towards that. But the moon makes us feel a little bit better with the sextile to Mars and the sextile to the sun. Now, I talked about 15 degrees of Pisces, where the sun was headed towards, right? Um, that's the star Ashurnar. It's in the constellation Eridanus, the river. And so there will probably be something that comes out regarding someone in public office, whether it's religion, higher education, philosophy, philosophers, people of great minds, or just that we associate with having prominence in. It is probably something having to do with the Pope or church office. Now, there was a lot happening the last time Neptune was in Aries. I think that was the first Vatican, whatever they call it, um, Vatican One, right? They're on Vatican Two now, but Vatican One, and that was a split between Vatican One and Vatican Two. So the origins of Vatican One were around this time when Neptune was in Aries, right? Neptune, religion, Christianity specifically, and in Aries, a new thing. So are they going to have something where maybe, they relieve the Pope of his duties before he passes? Or they're getting ready to do this. Maybe, well, anyway, we'll see. We never hear exactly what's going on. We hear the official narrative. And a lot goes on behind the scenes, especially here in Pisces. Now, Mercury stepping forward into Aries is an announcement of something. It's maybe not a formal announcement, but these are these little things that get floated out into the media to prepare people and give you the idea that, you know, this is what to expect moving forward. So, Tuesday, what else is going on? So, whatever goes on Tuesday is preparing us for what happens in early April. Mercury enters Aries Monday and Tuesday, not just Tuesday. And so that's, going through the first degrees of Aries is where Neptune will be in early April. It's letting us know what is on the horizon. And perhaps I will do a video. I'm thinking about it. I'm looking at the research already. I just don't know if I'll have time to do a video regarding Neptune in Aries. I think it's very important. None of us have seen it in our lifetime unless you're like 150 years old. And a lot of interesting things happen during that time in the United States, politically, but also in regard to religions. I mean, people came here from England, right, for religious freedom. And then they settled in particular places, but then there were groups that felt maybe a little uncomfortable. Maybe, they were unconventional. Maybe they were a little persecuted. there was a lot going on between the political and the religious during this time. And so that caused these groups to move, relocate, and settle in different places. It's a fascinating history and we should look at it. But that was all during the time of Neptune in Aries. So we'll see if I get around to it. But so pay attention to what's going on because Mercury is going to give us some ideas of what we're going to be facing with Neptune in Aries. Okay. Mercury get Venus is already there. That was probably when this started popping up on my radar. There was some stuff that came up recently and having to do with religion and stuff, but for me. But um Venus has already been through this degree. Now Mercury is there. So when they start to retrograde, they're going to come back. They'll be back at this degree. Neptune will be there. There will be conjunctions and there will be meetings and there will be secret clandestine operations and, convening, conferencing behind closed doors. I'm wondering if we will start to have some clarity. But then there will be these pockets of things going on. We see that things are going on, but we're not privy to what's happening because Neptune is there. So if Aries is new and Neptune is deception, I'm just saying, be on the lookout for new and creative lies. So, yeah, where's the lie? Where is the lie? Where is the asteroid lie? I don't want to stop the show just to look, but I'm gonna do it. 'Cause I gotta. It's my obsession. Asteroid lie. Where's my ephemeris? That's not it. Um, lie. I think it's in it's in Sagittarius. Right, right, right. I think it's about the middle because it was a couple of weeks ago that Mercury was square to lie from Pisces, and lie was opposite Jupiter, which is the truth. Also, like if it's, anything legal related, there was lies. I'm just telling you, there was lies that day. Uh lie is at yeah, of course it's in Sagittarius. Lies in the media, lies in religious and philosophical institutions. Lie is at 18 degrees of Sagittarius. It is squaring Saturn because Saturn is looking for definition and accountability. And Saturn, as I've seen, is the judge trying to apply the laws and statutes. Um, Not always well, but 18 degrees. It is in conjunct Mars, so it's maybe not acting, not being like direct, not taking action, more or less going on the past, like, yeah, I know what the law says, but it's been done in the past, so I can do it. Take it up on appeal. Well, I can only say that it will get very interesting moving into March in regard to the lies because during the eclipse time, it will really start to square the nodes, Saturn, Neptune, getting into mid March. Talking about the asteroid lie. You lie like a rug. So, sorry. Sorry to take out time out for that, but that's March 4th. How are we doing as far as time here? I didn't want to take more than an hour. It's an hour. I don't know why my screen is all kind of weird. Hang on. Looking at the Zoom. All right, it'll work itself out. Hopefully you can see the chart. That's weird. 11:11. Okay. Going back, March 4th, Tuesday, that's a 7. I look at my odd days as being a little off balance and somewhat of a challenge. So then we get to the 5th, March 5th, that's Wednesday. It's an 8 day with the numerology. And we have, okay, so the moon starts out mo- early in Taurus. So overnight, I should mention March 4th into the 5th, probably late if you're in the States, the moon will conjunct Uranus. And Uranus is close to a sextile with Saturn, and that's sort of a controlled chaos. Uranus is it's trying to push forward innovation and new ways and rebellion, but maybe in a more controlled and structured way. But the moon is pretty exuberant and is definitely, I would say, as it is Taurus. Taurus doesn't really like Uranus because it doesn't like change. So it's shaking things up a bit. And it comes from the emotional side and rocking of stability and rebellion towards the status quo. Then we have the 5th. So the moon is in Taurus the early part and then moves into Gemini, makes a sextile to Pluto and a sextile to Mercury. I expect there will be a lot of buzz, a lot of chatter, a lot of conversation on this day, exchange of information. Pluto could be regarding death, sex, control, uh, rumors, gossip, salaciousness. And I say that because Venus is conjunct the asteroid Salacia. So there is salacious stuff going on. So I expect it will be an interesting day. Not a bad day to socialize. Pluto is very transformative as far as, I think we want new networks of friends. This to me looks like, you know, getting out, socializing, wanting to meet people, network, and um, learn more about. I think there will be changes with technology and social media, and we want to learn more about it. We're definitely hearing more about it, and just some interesting buzz going on March 5th. Again, that's Wednesday. I'm going to say it all goes back to the moon and Mercury because Mercury is in Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars. Mars is in Cancer, and Cancer is ruled by the moon. So it all goes back to talking, speaking, conversing, starting the conversation about how we feel. We really want to talk about how we feel. So, in terms of relationships, Mercury is moving towards Venus. We want to talk about relationships. We want to talk and have a new conversation around relationships. I think we really want that. So, this is giving us a hint about how this Mercury and Venus retrograde will go. I think we want equal footing. I think we want, um, obviously, like minded, but, it's not just about our relationships with people that we want romance with. I mean, there's also work relationships, boss and employee, right? And family members. But there's a conversation wanting to happen. How can we create more emotional stability? How can we move forward and feel okay about things? That things aren't going to go back to the way they were in the past, that we're going to move forward and have better relationships, better, you know, um, interactions and communications with the people that we value. And do people value us? And this whole, I would say, the conversation in metaphorical terms or within ourselves, like having a conversation with ourselves, like evaluating where we stand in each relationship, in each dynamic. And is this valuing and affirming who I am as a person? Is this really who I am? Is this really what I want to be doing? Is this really the kind of people I want to be dealing with? Is this who I am? Is this how I see myself? Is this how other people see me? So, having to look at how we present ourselves is kind of an interesting thing too, because there's the inner you and then there's the external you. I think so that I think that's some interesting things that we can be looking at. So, that is Wednesday. Um Not really much going on in terms of the asteroids. I should mention on the 4th, there was a moon conjunction with Deianira and Hephaestus. Hephaestus, he actually was the blacksmith that made the weapons for the gods. There's that. But Hephaestus was rejected by his mother. So this asteroid has somewhat of a theme of feeling like a grotesque monstrosity, like unlovable. This is sort of Beauty and the Beast kind of energy, and Dejanira is the victim. She was raped by um, by Nessus, and Nessus is coming up soon because it's at 18 degrees of Pisces, I think, and the sun will be at 18 degrees of Pisces soon. So there's stuff coming up probably around that day. I would expect. Um, and then we get to Thursday. Thursday is the 6th. That's a 9 day. So in the terms of 1 to 9, something is wrapping up. Something is completing on the 9. We have the moon in Gemini. It will square the sun. This is the first quarter square, and it's sort of a nudge. So at the new moon, we get it's like a clean slate moving forward as the moon sort of grows. We start to it's like a seed germinating, right? And we get the first crescent that was Ramadan, by the way, in Aries, and s it's a new beginning. It's the feeling of a new beginning. It's a rebirth and a chance to start over, which happens every winter. It's like we made it through the winter, the dark months in our hemisphere anyway. Oh, hello, Darren. Darren has entered the chat. Darren, my friend, thanks for joining us. Hey, if you are here and you are live and you are not a bot watching, please hit the like button so that I know that you're human and it helps the channel. How's the visual there, Darren? It looks like my screen is stuck on my Zoom thing, swiping away. I don't know if you can see the chart, but anyway, let me know. And so, anyway, with the waxing of the moon, we get to the first quarter, and that's sort of a stirring of like, all right, I'm ready to act. I should do something. In astrology, it has been referred to as crisis of conscience. Crisis doesn't mean it's bad and everything's falling apart, but square, it's a square. So the moon is square to the sun. It is a impetus. It's a inspiration. It's a stirring. It's a nudging. I need to do something because the moon will square Saturn also. At that point, we're going to have to look at what is our blockage, what's the delay, what's the limitation, what are we afraid of, what is the authority. So it would be a good time to take action. And I did say the last week in February was the only week for a while that we had nothing retrograde. Now we have Venus. Is not that bad. Venus retrograde, not that bad. Hi, Crystal Mullen in the chat. Human Pisces here. Wow. How about all of this Pisces energy? You're either loving it or you're hating it, or you're just floating in it. It's like I think a lot about Pisces here is just unconditional surrender. It's like just go with it. We'll get through it. It'll be fine. Flow like water. Anyway, thank you, Crystal, for popping up today. I appreciate you and I appreciate Darren. Now, you guys have been introduced to one another. Darren, Crystal, Crystal, Darren. Say hello. Two people in the chat. Wow. March 6th. Oh, happy birthday early. That's fantastic. We are talking about your birthday. Look at that. So you have a Leo moon. That's awesome. And look at that. You popped in right here when we're talking about your birthday. That's fantastic. Look at that. So I don't know if it's your actual solar return because that sometimes that happens a little bit before your birthday, but it's the exact degree of your sun. So again, it could be the 6th or it could be the 5th. Uh, Depending on the time that you were born, whatever, whatever. But the solar return happens every year. And so you could pull up a solar return chart for yourself and look at it and see what house the sun falls in. And that will give you kind of an idea of what is going on for the year. So you were born in the afternoon. Yeah, so your sun is probably in the 10th, ninth or 10th house because think about it, noon where if you're born at noon or around noon, like I was born at 11 in the morning. So my sun is in the 10th house. So I think your chart is probably you probably have a natal sun in the ninth house, I'm guessing. But it really depends. It depends on the place that you were born. But if you pull up a solar return chart, that will give you a chart for the exact degree of your sun. And then you look at where your sun is in that solar return chart. It gives you the theme for your year. So, short little lesson on solar return. Thanks for coming into the chat, Crystal. You're awesome. So, we're going to say happy birthday to Crystal on Wednesday. So, that inspires me to look very closely at March 6th, as it is Crystal's birthday. So the moon will be in Gemini. That'll be sextile-ish or in harmony with your Leo moon. Very nice. And the moon will sextile to Venus and, like I said, square to the sun and could give us information on this day or have us looking at our core identity. Who are we as a soul? How do we take in information? What messages are we getting on that day? And with Jupiter in Gemini, there's a lot. We're getting a lot. And I think this is really about sorting through things for ourselves. You know, we constantly get messages and we have to sort through like, is this in alignment with what I think, what I feel? Do I need more information? Is this someone trying to skew the information? Am I being given a message about myself that is untrue? Am I agreeing with that? Think about all the ways we handle information. How do we disseminate information? How do we communicate? How can we communicate better? In Pisces, there's been so much going on, right? But it will get sorted out between the 5th and the 6th. It'll all get sorted out. But then we get to look back on it and say, huh, was that person really trying to pull the wool over my eyes? Really? Really? And what are we going to do about it? Because that's the action. There will be calls to action. It doesn't mean that you have to act. You can still sit on it. This is still the first quarter square. I think we're just still gathering our information. Absolutely. So let's see, what else can we say about the moon in Gemini that day? It's busy. I think there's a lot we can get done this week, even though, Venus is retrograde, but it's something that we're dealing with on an internal level. It's like, maybe we want to look at new ways of creating value in our life. I think we have to have a new way of looking at money, finances, and relationships. And I think, from a aesthetics perspective, maybe reimagining our brand, our look, looking through banking and what we consider to be of value. I think this would probably be a good time to clean out the closet and sell some stuff on eBay, Facebook, Marketplace, and stuff like that. So let's go to March 7th. Now, March 7th is a 1 in numerology. We have the moon square to Neptune. I think we're uncovering a lot of the deception that happened last week. Like, that was a lie. Oh, that was spin. Oh, that was propaganda. Oh, this is the new way that people are trying to scam or pull the wool over or whatnot. It's the moon is ruled by Gemini, so we want to communicate our emotions, how we feel. The public is very focused on information, communication, duality, right? Because Gemini is the twins. Maybe we're looking at the duality within us. I know I go back and forth with that. Like, I'll be like, well, part of me feels this way. And then there's another part of me that feels completely opposite. Like, I mean, people would say, well, that's unstable, that's schizoid. I actually feel like it's more integrated in terms of like rather than saying, "Ooh, this part of me is bad, I'm going to repress that." That becomes shadow. At least I can acknowledge when I'm being duplicitous. So there's a lot of duplicity going on. 6 to the 7th, or you know what? You can change your mind. You can change your mind because once the moon gets into Cancer, it's all about how we feel. We want to speak about how we feel, and we're going to be making emotional decisions and screw it because we're going to have to do it all over again in some on some level when Mercury goes retrograde and Venus is passing through these degrees again. So I think it's better to play out scenarios in your head. I don't know if you guys do this, but I do. I play out scenarios in my head, even if it's something I would never do, if it's something that I don't want, you know, acknowledge your reaction to it, trigger your own emotions. Try that sometime. I am an advocate for self triggering. I do it all the time. So I think that's how you master your shadow. You got to tease it out. So, March 7th, Friday, I think there's a lot of information coming out. Not all of it is true. Some of it is exposing what was hidden. It is dealing with Neptune, is absolutely dealing with the star that I talked about earlier, Shiat, which is at 28 or 29 of Pisces. And it is like what it sounds like. And there's a lot of humiliation and vanity associated with that degree and that star. Um, it's Pegasus, right? So, where people have been very egotistical and wanted to be the first to come out with stuff, I think they're going to get busted up on throughout this week, but by Friday, boy, they're going to be they're going to be well, I'm thinking about the media and the circus that went on this last week. And I think the way this will be looked at is they will be looked at as the mockingbirds that they are. Project Mockingbird. So the one star Azazel Fafage in Cygnus, that's a bird right there. And that's all about talking birds, talking heads, collecting information and disseminating it. And then we've got Shiat. This is where Neptune is, and the moon is going to square it. All right. That's why I'm saying this. Shiat is ambition, vanity, intuition, enthusiasm, but capriciousness, bad judgment, shifts and changes in the weather. And people with poor discernment and act out of ambition and vanity are going to be taken down a peg. And that's what Pegasus is all about. Can't wait. Can't wait to see what this brings. There's more. There's absolutely more to come, but that's just this week, right? So let me get done with this week, and then I'm going to look at, I'm going to look specifically at Aries decan 1 because that's where all this action with Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde is happening. But let's move on to Saturday. Saturday is August 8th, and that's a 2-day in numerology, and the moon is in Cancer. It will square, well, the day before it'll square Mercury and Venus, but moving through Cancer early, like overnight and then early, and it is moving towards a conjunction with Mars, which means action, anger, assertiveness, time to move, in trine with the sun. So it should flow pretty harmoniously and, you know, uh, I don't know about harmoniously, but there will be an opportunity to act on some things here. I do kind of like it in terms of going with your emotion, not letting it get the best of you, but what really inspires you, what inspires you to create based on this new sense of self. Mars in trine to Saturn. Go back to where we were in the beginning of February because that was when um that was when we last had this trine. And I think at that time, well, if we really go back in September, Saturn was retrograde and it was making a trine to Mars, which was direct in Cancer. So there's a longer cycle that is wrapping up here that started in September. And then there was another hit in the beginning of February here. And now we're moving forward with Mars direct. So progress. But the moon will square Chiron. So it's a challenge. It may come up, maybe some triggering around anger, identity issues, and overall maybe feeling some stuck energy still, but I think we're responding better. I think we're processing the anger. I think we are acknowledging it. We're allowing it, but we're not letting it get to get the best of us, or we're doing better with it. Um, Channeling it into more productive pursuits, shall we say. And now working on having worked that through internally, now we're starting to work on that with the relationships. Like if something fell apart during that time, you know, f- in September and things were difficult, we're kind of moving past that and we're getting ready to sort of confront it, wrap our heads around it, talk about it, talk to the other person, working together rather than getting triggered and taking things personally. So then we move on to the 9th, Sunday, which is a 3-day. I find the 3-6-9s to be pretty interesting to look at in terms of the progression of a thing. The moon is sextile to Uranus. I like Uranus aspects because it's pushing us forward. It's spurring us on to freedom and the new ways, getting us out of a stuck rut. The moon is trine to Neptune. That is very good creatively, emotionally, and there's a lot of empathy and compassion here. I really do think that the cluster of planets at the in Pisces is helping us to have a little more empathy and to kind of see it from the other side. That's the only thing that's really going to help us to come together with other people rather than seeing us separate and our just us and our interests and what we want, how we see things. Empathy is not like sympathy. It's not like feeling sorry, but it's being able to tap into someone else's emotions so that we could see through their eyes, so we could then extrapolate how they might be thinking. So, in that sense, it is sort of a form of telepathy. But March 9th, I mean, it really feels in terms of where we're going and stability and productivity and clarity and, maturity and accountability. Yeah, on the one hand, it seems a little heavy with Saturn there, but ultimately, when the sun reaches Saturn and makes its conjunction, that'll be at 22 degrees of Pisces. And that's a master number, right? 22. And Sun Saturn can feel very heavy and weighty. I know uh, I know people who have who were born with Sun Saturn, and there is a tendency towards pessimism and depression, but we could choose how to look at things, right? And we can take action. And I think that there's a lot of good synergistic planetary energy here where, all right, Saturn reminds us that sometimes things move slow and sometimes we have to wait. But there are day to day small actions that we can take, and Mars is moving forward. And we really should look at um, small efforts to move forward. And in terms of our relationships, I think we're making efforts to kind of come together and have a conversation that would have to do with, you know, starting over in a relationship or um, when I say relationship, I'm just talking about two people one on one. This could be, you know, there was a lot of friction at work, and the boss maybe wasn't responding well. And so, uh, from the employee's perspective, they become resentful and they start to be spiteful and passive aggressive and sabotaging. And so, there is a conversation coming. I mean, just think of what I said as metaphorically, but there's a conversation coming to say, you know, we both have similar goals. What is our goal? We can align ourselves with our goals and each taking responsibility for how they respond based on their role in the relationship. Managers have to manage. Employees have to follow, follow certain rules, and there are structures and limitations and responsibilities. Everyone has their responsibility. So each needs to take accountability, but that's coming. And, the person who does that is a true leader. You know, you may be the employee and your boss is not necessarily stepping up, taking responsibility, or clarifying things the way they need to, or managing, or, there, when you need support or whatever. But stepping up as an employee can actually shift the dynamic because it can call the boss into account, stepping up and being the one to make that change or be accountable or, you know, point out a better way, you know, being, you know, proactive, being proactive. That's the word I'm looking for. So the moon starts out in Cancer. There could be really good dreams happening, by the way, while the moon is going through Cancer and hitting all those Pisces planets. Um, so by Sunday, I think we feel a little bit more inspired and it really comes back down to our emotional stability and creating that and family and home, tradition, nostalgia. That's all Cancer moon stuff. But late in the day, it'll go into Leo. I'm just looking at the asteroids at the end of Cancer for anybody who is interested and curious. Minerva is at 23 Cancer in retrograde. Ascalaphus, which is my whistleblower snitch asteroid, is at 25 Cancer retrograde. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Watch Sunday for that possibly to come up. With that asteroid at the end of Cancer, that means Mars is moving towards that asteroid. So there will be a lot going on with snitches and whistleblowers, people turning state's evidence. All right. Next, we have at 26 Cancer, Eclipse. Eclipse is, how can I describe it? It's like the prequel of of the movie saga where they go back to the beginning or pre-investigation. Um, when you get far on in an investigation, but then you get something that forces you to go back way back to the beginning. This also has to do with sort of like retrograde energy where a planet passes through, makes an aspect while it's on its direct motion, and then it retrogrades, it comes back and it makes another aspect. That's the second one, and then it goes forward and makes the aspect the third time. That's Eshiclus. That's like 3 strikes, the third strike. Like, it happens the first time you see the red flag, and then it happens the second time. Now you're like, "Hmm, do I give it another chance?" And then it happens the third time, and it's like, "Alright, we need to address this." That is very retrograde energy. So that's what that asteroid sorta, refers to, first, second, and third pass of something, and it's like striking a blow, and then the third one is the death blow. That's where the moon will be Sunday, starting out the day. That's interesting. Ascalaphus, Echeclus, and then Pandora at 27. These are all retrograde, so this is all stuff coming up from the past. And all of this is sextiling the they don't move very fast, so they're gonna start out the week. That makes a trine to Mercury, Neptune, the North Node, which is all about obfuscation. It's all about smoke and mirrors, dog and pony show, putting on a big to do in order to obfuscate and deceive. And these asteroids are making an aspect to that. And it's like, oh, where have we seen this before? It's stuff coming up from the past. And Minerva, that's um that has to do with divination and oracles. There's a Minerval degree in Freemasonry. Minerva is a goddess. It's the goddess of the sea. Are we talking about the Navy? Are we talking about water travel? I don't know. But Asclepius, whistleblower. Aeschylus, third time, three strikes. Retrogrades. Pandora, opening Pandora's box. The Pandora files. That should come up with the whole Ukraine thing. That was part of the Pandora files, if I'm not mistaken. So it'll be interesting to see what happens then. And then the moon moves into Leo later in the day and conjuncts asteroid Karma at 2 degrees, also retrograde, and Volcanus. Volcanus. Let's talk a little bit about Volcanus. Well, karma, we all know what that is. Karma's a bitch. Karma is opposite Pluto. That's very interesting. Um, that's very interesting. We won't really go too much into that, but I wanted to look up Volcanus because I was reading something recently about Volcanus, and it was actually I have an ebook called The Trader's Guide to Astrology Forecasting, and Volcanus, I believe, is one of the asteroids that they look at. No, maybe it's not. Yes, it is. I spelt it wrong. It's VULC. I put a K there. So Volcanus, it's a trans-Neptunian body. I just say asteroid, but there are different types. So it's called a trans-Neptunian asteroid, and Volcanus is the seed breaking through the earth. And karma is cause and effect. And it is opposing Pluto. So it's almost like because of the Plutonian control and manipulation and power games, you have this seed that is breaking through the earth. Something is growing and germinating as a result in response to the growing power of Pluto in Aquarius. So Pluto is power, right? Pluto in Aquarius is power of the masses or power over the masses and control, the control grid, digital currency, uh, control over technology through technology. Oh, Pegasus software. We should talk about that. Go Google it. But we were talking about constellation Pegasus. All of these things have meaning. And Pegasus is in Pisces, and there's so much hidden in Pisces, right? It's like the celestial depository, sometimes garbage can of our psyches and the collective. So, all right, so that wraps up the week. And I said I was going to talk a little bit about Aries Decan 1 because that's where Mercury and Venus are, where they will retrograde. So there's a lot of emphasis there. Decan is 10, so it's the first 10 degrees of a sign, the first decan, and we're talking about Aries. So we'll talk a lot about this because I want to do a special separate show just about the Mercury and Venus retrograde in Aries here. And then it moves into Pisces, so that'll be very interesting. And because, most importantly, Neptune is going to be moving into Aries, so we'll want to know what that's all about. Neptune being the planet of the veil that separates our conscious from unconscious. So, um, I pulled a lot of this information from Austin Coppock's. It's called 36 Faces by Austin Coppock, and he talks about a lot about the decans and planets in the decans. Very, very interesting book if you get your hands on it. But so he talks about the first decan um, as being known by the ancients as being the axe. So think of it as, the the axe is a splitter, right? So it's making two out of one. Very interesting. So Aries being the individual will, axe being a tool. So your personal tools, how do you split yourself, your personality? How does the personality get split? I think about Neptune in Pisces and Pisces, I'm sorry, Neptune being in Aries, and Aries is personal and Neptune is spirituality. So I would say a new personal spiritual journey. Um, I think there's a, a theme of liberation versus castration. It's these, I just jotted down notes while I was going through the part in 36 Faces, the part on Decan 1, it made me think about chemical castration. Liberation. Why, I don't even know why I wrote this. I don't know that this is what he said. This is just what I wrote. Liberation. I mean, that's Aries, but but then castration made me think of chemical castration. You know why that would be. You know why that would come up. If that comes up in our collective dialogue, it's because we're talking about people who need to be chemically castrated. Um, he did write in this chapter about individual yang emerging from the collective yin. Yin is feminine, passive, it attracts, while yang is, you know, external, outward, projecting, and it pursues. It's the opposite. Yin attracts, yang pursues. So the individual yang energy emerging from the collective yin. Also in my notes, I jotted down underdeveloped personality, infant, right? Isn't that the id? Will shaping and molding reality to conform, battle of wills and wits, and trickster, trickster energy. So I think it does uh, deal with severing and dissolving, as the axe is the splitter and Neptune does dissolve. It dissolves things that, like we're done with, that quote, no longer serve. I think it creates sort of a subjective order and, you know, on a personal level, cutting through the overgrowth, the jungle. That's, thinking about the axe or machete and splitting so that you can have a path, clearing the path. And this Aries energy is like in its raw form, y- useful to burn through an adversary, whatever the adversary is. And Saturn will be entering Aries after Neptune does. And I've been looking at Saturn in Aries, well, for a long time because I have Saturn in Aries. And one thing I've always noticed is Saturn in Aries is instant karma. Saturn is instant, and I'm sorry, Aries is instant, and Saturn is karma. And so I've seen both sides of that coin where it was like I realized at an early age I could never get away with anything. I just couldn't. It's like instant karma. And whether it was I just feel crappy and that's my karma and so I can't do anything, against my um, against my conscience or something that would harm another person, um, or something that I was just not allowed to do, I would always get in trouble for it. So, and I also learned that, it really doesn't feel good to violate your conscience. And so it kind of kept me on the straight and narrow, but it also showed me, it gave me the understanding of instant karma when it comes to people who violate you. And if any of you guys who are listening, if you have Saturn in Aries and you can attest to this, there is a certain divine retribution when with Saturn in Aries. And I think this is about learning to wield that sword correctly. And, know that if you have been violated in some way or that you have been given, let's say you've been given a chance to observe it. And so you're in a position to step in and stop it. Like stop this abuse, stop this violation of a person, let's say. Um, then in that position, Saturn says you are the judge, you are the arbiter. And I've always thought of it as like having sort of a spiritual council or panel of judges. It's like I imagine myself going to like a Supreme Court and presenting evidence to the judges and then asking for something to be done in my favor, a remedy, let's say. Um, and I think this has to do with understanding who we are spiritually and what power we have to call upon. So that's a personal thing, I'm not trying to start like, my own religious thing here, but I share what I know, what I've observed, what I experienced. But it is personal to me, obviously, because that's Saturn in Aries and I have it natally. However, it's just that I understand how it functions because I've lived through it. But now Saturn is going into Aries and it will be about, the um personal application of the Saturnian authority, being your own authority and wielding your authority, recognizing what authority you have. So I hope that it'll be the end of this whole, oh, look what they're doing to us. Oh, no, we don't get to do that anymore. It is all personal. We are all responsible. Therefore, we can participate, and that's the good news. There is something that the individual can do. You can check in and say, "No, I don't like that. I register my complaint with the court," on a meditative level. If you can't do anything physically. So Crystal says in the chat, "Karma has me on a short leash." I can relate to that. Can't lie about being sick to get out of family functions, or I will get sick for real. No joke. No joke, Crystal. You know, I feel that, and it has not been popular, but my approach has been I don't like those people, and I don't wanna be around them, and why should I have to go to somebody's house who doesn't like me, and while they pretend to like me, while I know that they hate me, and then I have to play along. It Years ago, I decided, I'm not going to family functions anymore because I don't want to. Because yeah, whatever, my family was being shits. So, that's Saturn in Aries. And it's not comfortable, and it's not fluffy. It's not like Saturn in Libra. Saturn in Libra, Saturn is happier in Libra, but Saturn's not so happy. But you know what it is? It's how people react to you. And you know what? I don't care anymore. At a certain point, I decided I don't care. I got tired of hating holidays, and I hated holidays because I had to be around people that I wasn't happy being around. And so, Aries is being yourself, and Saturn is, you know, it's difficult, it's hard, it's a challenge, but you got to do it. And being honest and just being honest about it. But like honesty is not that popular, especially when you have to tell one family member that you don't want to be around another family member. And Saturn is all about what's expected of you, right? Saturn is tradition, Saturn is authority, and Saturn's the dad that says, you have to go because the family's going. I did a lot of shit that I didn't want to do because that's what our family was doing, or that's what dad said. And, mom always went along with it. But it made me sick. It just made me sick. It made me sick to have to, like, why do I have to suffer? I want to celebrate the way I want to celebrate. I want to be happy. And I remember one Easter, I thought, do I do the family thing or do I go out with my girlfriends for brunch? And I said to my son, you can go to your cousin's house. Mom's going to go out to brunch with her girlfriends. See ya. And you know what? That was the best Easter. That would have been probably Aries season. Definitely going from Pisces, which was me, my ascendant. Pisces, make the sacrifice. Do it for the family. Make everybody else happy. And then in Aries, it's like, but I'm not happy. And you know what? If I'm not happy, no one's going to be happy. When I'm happy, oh, I could make everybody else so happy. You will be so happy when I'm happy. If I'm not happy, we're all going to be miserable. But you know what? I think I think the other family members are happy because they don't have to entertain us anymore. They don't have to pretend. They were doing it out of duty and obligation. Saturn, right? But it doesn't necessarily honor the individual until the individual takes responsibility, takes accountability, and says, all right, it's going to be uncomfortable, but I'll be the one to say it. I'm going to go to brunch. And I never looked back. So, Crystal, good luck with that. Well, you can't lie and say that you're sick. So, I mean, you could just tell the truth. I just don't want to go. And then take the flack. It'll blow over. But you know what? You're giving other people permission to say the truth and acknowledge the truth. Look at that. And then you could be freeing, your whole family from karma. Because then they're all like, oh, thank God. We all wanted to be going and doing something else for that instead of that family function or whatever. Whatever. I think the whole point of it is being true to yourself. Being true to yourself and not sacrificing, Pisces, to make other people happy. That's codependency. We're not doing that anymore. We're moving into a new age, and it's the age of Aries. It's like, boom, start your own religion, start a cult. Not literally. I know people who, YouTuber friends, who have their own quote cult, but it's a joke. It's a joke. And I'm really looking forward to this. Saturn and Neptune, that's like Saturn reality, Neptune fantasy. Is it reality or is it a fantasy, or can your fantasies become reality? I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with the whole creating your own reality. Not that I believe in The Secret. I think maybe we have a better understanding that this reality is created by our collective unconscious. Our reality is created through our subconscious. So, whatever we don't acknowledge and we push under the rug, that's where the friction is going to come because I'm going to turn this screen sharing off because I think it's not working. That's where we have the problem. That's where the sickness comes from. That's where, all of the family secrets and the denial and um, just the things that we don't want to acknowledge about ourselves, that we repress, that we suppress, and then people end up attacking those traits in other people because that's projection, that's shadow boxing, that's scapegoating. And we will be happier when we acknowledge who we are. But we got to figure that out in Pisces, right? We got to go through the Pisces and dig up what has been held back, what has been silenced, repressed. And Saturn is doing that. So I'm looking forward to Saturn in Aries. I'm looking forward to my Saturn return. I'm looking forward to Neptune in Aries. And I think it's going to be a great time for the arts. Neptune rules cinema and Hollywood and the arts. Hollywood as we see it needs an enema, right? So let's see what comes out of it. And, you know, soon when I get around to it, I'm going to do a video on the Mercury and Venus retrogrades and talk about the eclipses, probably all in one video because it's all happening in 1 month, March, and it's complicated. So we have a lot going on in March. Um, and I want to also, these are notes to self, to do a video about Neptune and Aries and historically what that looked like, as well as Saturn in Aries. So that is my plan. So if you are watching here on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to the channel because you're awesome. And you will get notifications when I post a video or when I go live. Because I keep saying it, but this is the year where I'm going to take live calls and I'm going to do live readings free on the air to give y'all a little sample, a little tidbit, a little taste of what I do. And it's fun. Who wouldn't want to spend a Saturday afternoon or a Friday night or something like that learning about astrology, getting readings? It's definitely been on my to-do list. So, uh, yeah, absolutely. Just subscribe if you're not. Hit the bell for notifications. Like the video. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you guys for your support. And I recognize each and every one of you. I see you. I see you out there. Um, yes, also, if you're interested in having a reading, eclipse times and retrograde times, especially times like these, are a good time to get a reading. If you get one once a year or every 6 months, fantastic. The eclipses are big shift points. Our nodes of the moon, the nodes of fate, are now in a different sign than they have been. They just recently switched into Pisces and Virgo, and so our eclipses are different. Um, we're working on different things, So the eclipses will happen in that sign, that axis of the nodes for about a year and a half. So we're going through a new cycle now. So it's helpful. It is helpful to know where the big changes are going to be in your life. What you're going to be letting go of, what new stuff is going to be coming in, what you want to revise and fix your focus upon. And yeah, so that's always helpful. So I do a special. Have you I've historically run a special for the eclipses and retrogrades for just that one thing uh for $50. But I think I can combine them with the eclipses and the retrograde. Since it's all clustered in one particular area, we're going to do a $75 reading, just focusing on the eclipses and the retrogrades of Mercury and Venus, all for $75. So it'll give you an idea of where the changes will be happening and specifically for this time period. It will affect March, April, but what we have to understand is this is the laying the foundation for like the next 6 months. It's themes that will be playing out for the next 3 and 6 months. So it's a good idea to know what to expect. And so, again, if you are interested in that, you can reach me at my email at astrolunatic@gmail.com. If you are on Twitter, you can send me a DM. Um, please follow me on Twitter if you're not following already. I'm on Instagram and Facebook also. You could just look for me, Astro Lunachick. and come over, follow, say hi over there. And if there's a topic that you'd like for me to look at and discuss, or if you have a question, always open to answering questions regarding astrology, not your particular chart. That would be, a reading. So, if you are interested in a reading, I do natal chart readings. We could look at progressed charts. We could look at relocated charts. I look at the asteroids and I look at the stars. And if that's something that you want to look at with me, um, give me a ringy dingy. I also have a phone number. Uh, yeah, so it's an actual phone number. You can text me. Don't call because I probably won't answer, but you can text me and inquire about a reading, and we'll have a conversation, see what it is you're looking for, and then take it from there. I also take all forms of payment, um, including cryptocurrency. So it depends on what you hold. Uh, I'm not going to probably take like Father based Pepe, based Father Pepe, or something like that. I mean, whatever. I mean, it translates into a dollar amount, but I don't know if I'll take like your little meme coins, but we'll discuss it, If it's something like substantial, I'll probably just swap it out anyway if it's some kind of something I don't already hold, but we could talk. We could talk. I want to be your crypto astrology go-to biatch. And I still haven't had anybody book a reading and pay with crypto yet, but it's out there for somebody to be the first to help me break my break my virginity of crypto. But yeah, so that option is out there too if you don't want to spend your cash, but you got some crypto lying around. If it's it has to correspond to a dollar amount, not not what XRP might be worth this spring. Although I do have faith in XRP. Um, it's not a speculative thing. So like, if we book a $50 reading, it's got to be like $50 of based Father Pepe. But then I'll look at the market and I'll see where we're at. And I'm like, oh, are we on the upswing? All right, I'll take based Father Pepe. All right, all kidding aside, it's over 2 hours. Oh, it's because I talked shit the first half hour. But anyway, so that's pretty much it. And that's how to find me. Oh, did I give my phone number? No, I didn't. My phone number is 914-222-1231. So you text me, I acknowledge you, we have a chat. And otherwise, you can email me. If you don't hear from me with the email, then it might have gotten lost in the bin. So try the DMing on X, Twitter, or text me on my Astro Lunatic hotline. All right, everybody, all two of you, thanks for joining in. Excuse me. Crystal, shout out to Crystal and Darren dominating the chat room. Whoop, whoop. And Crystal, I hope you have a wonderful birthday and good luck with the family thing. Don't lie to them. Don't tell them you're sick. Just tell them you're sick and tired of being sick and tired and you got better things to do. All right, then. All right. So this is Astro Lunatic signing off. Over and out, and ciao for now.